Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. DC is scrambling to handle a possible $1 billion cut to its budget, with officials eyeing what may need to be on the chopping block in the coming days, weeks, even months. DC Mayor Muriel Bowser has warned that city services would be greatly impacted, including police, fire and EMS, trash collection, metro, even teachers. Well, tonight, we sit down with the head of the Washington Teachers Union to talk about the plight of teachers. How are they faring with this latest news coming on the heels of efforts to do away with the U.S. Department of Education? And what's the impact on your child's classroom? My guest is Jacqueline Pogue Lyons, president of the Washington Teachers Union. Ms. Lyons, thank you so much for joining us and spending some time with us to talk about this really important conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Sure thing. Let me just share a couple of fast facts. Fiscal year 2026, DC is proposing to spend $2.9 billion on public schools. That's about $123 million in increases over the 2025 budget. And that increase equates to about $15,000 per student. What are the immediate concerns among teachers regarding potential budget cuts?
Well, I think the concern for both parents and teachers is that if Congress doesn't pass the legislation that the Senate unanimously passed, that will literally have to furlough teachers, that teachers may be losing their jobs. And as I've said, and I continue to say all over the city, we have a fairly young teaching staff in the District of Columbia. We've always been discussing, me as a 32-year veteran, that we want to get and keep great teachers. And there's so much competition in surrounding areas for teachers and in other professions, that with the threat of furloughing teachers, how do we expect to keep the young people that we have?
Why do you believe that having a young teaching staff is significant? I mean, does that matter? Explain that if you can.
No, the teaching profession has just changed since I first entered. We used to have, when I first entered as someone in their 20s, we had a variety of teachers, but most of the teachers were seasoned professionals with 15 or more years. But it's changed now. And part of the reason it's changed is because we're getting the best and the brightest, but we can't seem to keep a hold of them. That's why we're so excited that we got a contract last year, and the contract that we got had really good working conditions. Now, we know that it's expensive to live in this area. We did get a contract with some with a raise. But the most important thing that I found that we got with this contract was better working conditions. And I feel that's essential if you want to keep the great young people that we're getting into this profession. But if you have to worry about these folks who have student loans, are getting ready to start families, living in a city that is expensive, and the surrounding areas are expensive too, how do you expect to keep these great people and expect them to do the tremendous task of educating our students if they have to worry that they may be furloughed? If they have to worry that they might not have a job, they might take their expertise elsewhere.
Did you happen to see the mayor's press conference earlier today?
I did not, but my staff briefed me on it, and her concerns, and the fact that if we didn't get to discuss everything, but I know we're awaiting what's going to happen in Congress. And that's pivotal. I'm so happy that we did get a lot of teachers and families and even children who showed up at the Hart Building last Thursday. Many people might not know, but it was parent-teacher conference last Thursday, and all of our students were out, and their parents took that opportunity to come onto the Hill and to speak to the senators, to let them know that people actually do live in this city and attend school and love their city. I mean, our city is about the size of inner Boston or Seattle. There are about 700,000 folks who live here, who thrive here, who want to be educated here. And so it was great that families showed up at the Hart Building along with our teachers, along with state board members and other union leaders and city council members to speak to the Senate about how this could affect our city, meaning essential services, police officers, firefighters, and teachers. And I particularly want to point out that we're not far out of what we had to deal with during COVID. And we're just seeing slight glimmers of progress in getting our kids back to the things that they lost during COVID, meaning we were virtual, then we had to come back. And many of our kids lost a lot because nothing's better than being in person. And we're seeing glimmers of coming back, and then to have to worry about losing teachers. It's just, I don't know if something like that happens, I don't know how we would recover.
Well, to that point, I wanted to play a comment that the mayor said at her press conference today, and then I'll have you react on the other side, if you will.
If your question is if we had to make $1 billion cut right now, as Kevin likes to say, we start with, we have to go where the money is in our budget to cut that fast. And our top areas of spending are schools, public safety, and the human services.
What are your thoughts specifically? And I think you kind of touched on it, but after hearing her thoughts about possible cuts, what comes to mind for you?
We can't afford it. Like I said, we haven't been out of the setbacks that we had to deal with during COVID. And again, on top of that, what I keep saying, it is so hard for us to keep the great, wonderful people that we have in this profession. And so when you have a teaching profession that's on the young side and that it's hard to get and keep them, this is something like COVID that I know if we did not get the $1 billion, we would suffer from. This would be something we'd suffer from for years and years to come. And I went to a town hall with Chairman. I attended a town hall in Ward 8 with Chairman Mendelson. And what struck is something that he said to me. He said, it's almost like making a decision when you have your own budget, your own household budget, and you all of a sudden don't have money. What do you decide not to do first? Do you decide your gas, your water, your electric, your rent or your mortgage, your food? How do you make that decision when you have a family of what you're going to cut first? That is what this city is facing. What do you cut first? Because we need firefighters. We need those essential services that get us back and forth. The city has to be clean. And we definitely know we need teachers, especially in our underserved communities. We can't afford to lose them, especially when research has said over and over again, the most essential part in great outcomes for students, it's our teachers. And if you lose them, and they can't know that they can depend on their livelihood in this wonderful city, I don't know if we could get them back. And this is coming at a time, I mean, springtime is the most magical time in the district. I mean, the cherry blossoms in April on through the fall. And so to have to face cuts in essential services when we depend on the tourists who come in starting in the spring, I can't even, it would be devastating.
Specifically, have there been any discussions with policymakers about how these budget cuts could affect classroom resources and student learning? Obviously, you've spoken about teachers, but when you begin to get down to some of the foundational things, what might possible cuts mean for those resources and students?
Well, like, we're not only just concerned about what's going on in a city with the $1 billion. That's something that we had to rally and organize with right away. But we're also concerned about the fact that we learned last week that the U.S. Department of Education has gone down to half of the staff that they normally have. And we're expecting even more changes to the Department of Education, which again would be another blow. And it means less opportunities for our students. I think people don't understand that how important the U.S. Department of Education is to the day-to-day lives of a teacher and students, particularly if you are a student with special needs, if you are an ELL student, if you are a student who wants to go into CTE, career and technical education. Even our military families depend on the U.S. Department of Education. So and to ensure that our children with special needs have their civil rights. And if their civil rights are broken as far as what they are supposed to receive under their IEP, to make sure that that's fulfilled, those all come under the U.S. Department of Education. And people sometimes think that the U.S. Department of Education will tell districts and locals and states what they have to do and what they must do in curriculum. That's not what the U.S. Department of Education does. They're kind of like a guide. And I've told everyone that I've been speaking to about the Department of Ed, I was a kindergarten teacher and an ELL teacher. And I would say that I have, my expertise is reading. And I wouldn't have the expertise that I have in reading if it wasn't for the wonderful resources and the wonderful research done by the U.S. Department of Education. I mean, really ground, like deep level research on what it means to be a good reading teacher.
Well, and I did want to talk more about the U.S. Department of Education, but I guess, more specifically, my question was, if there were cuts, where might you see on a local level, not from the Fed, but how would it impact classroom resources and learning?
Well, if we're talking about the $1 billion for the district, that means less teachers in the schools and larger classroom sizes. That's the main part of it. And again, I keep saying, once you lose the people that we have, we can't guarantee that we'll get them back because there's no stability there. And so how are we, especially our kids in low economic areas, how do we expect them to have the opportunities that they need to have for a great education if they're in big, huge classrooms with other kids? And that's the immediate, because I've even heard people say that we might have to go down, close firehouses. We'll have less firefighters and definitely less officers to protect our city streets. It would we would have feel the effects of it right away.
Hold on, because I do want to talk more about some of the specifics and exactly where we are on a number of levels. But we are first going to take a break, and don't forget, you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR. I'm Harold Fisher. This conversation continues on Sirius XM, channel 141 and 96.3 HD2 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM, channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about education in the DC public school system. My guest is Jacqueline Pogue Lyons, president of the Washington Teachers Union. Before the break, you were talking about the Department of Education. And one of the talking points from the Trump administration has been that the president wants to see education go back to local control of the states, but it already is. So what do you make of that?
Right. That's the big thing that people don't, sometimes they don't understand, or they don't have the knowledge to know that the U.S. Department of Education, again, is like a resource. It's a guide, particularly for someone like me as a teacher. They've never come into my classroom and said, you must do this. But the research they do, the guidance that they give, it can help someone like me who who served in many underserved communities, help students have great outcomes in reading, particularly when you think about the science of reading. Some of the resources that they put out on phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency guided me through most of my career in getting the outcomes that I needed from students. But it wasn't something that they told me I had to do it. It was just a resource. I think that people right here in the district, 15% of our students have special needs. And so you want to make sure that that districts or locals follow their individual learning plans, or you would say their IEPs. What the Trump administration wants to do is give out block grants to individual locals and cities and states. We can't be sure that we'll protect our ELL students, our students with IEPs, our students in underserved communities when you give out block grants. We can't be sure that those funds won't be diverted to other places or other things. So that's the main concern that I know as an educator that I have, that those funds won't be used the way they need to be. I also want to add that many people don't know that the U.S. Department of Ed and their support and their funding also helps to support before and after care programs, so that parents can go to work and know that their kids are in a safe place, learning and interacting with other children. That's where a lot of the Department of Education's support comes from too.
So have you been able to talk to students, teachers specifically, about morale, considering where we are in this political climate and some of the machinations on Capitol Hill? What kind of feedback have you heard?
Well, there's a worry and a concern. I tell everybody every day I have the best job in the world. I represent close to 6,000 public school teachers in the District of Columbia. And I will say that our teachers are used to organizing and getting out there and being loud and proud and to support our students and what we know is right for our students. And so I listen to their worry. I get it. I'm worried too. But the best way we can do it is to get out there and organize to protect our students. And that's what we did last Thursday when we realized that there could be $1 billion cut from the local DCPS District of Columbia, I should say, city. We went out and organized. Many of our teachers, even though some of them had parent-teacher conferences early in the day, late in the day, some of them came out before their parent-teacher conferences to come out to the Hart Building to talk to senators about what it means if they have to worry about $1 billion being cut from the city budget. And some of our teachers came out to the Wilson Building before they went to work to rally for community schools. Then another set of teachers, after they finished with their parent-teacher conferences, came out to the U.S. Department of Education building to rally in support of the U.S. Department of Education. So even in our worry and our angst about the uncertainty of the future, they know the best way to come out and organize, to speak out about what we know is right for our students. So I'm so grateful for the hard work and the fact that they're always willing to come out to support families, to support students, and to support the community.
What plans does the union have in the event that there are layoffs in supporting teachers who lose their jobs?
We just going to rally to the very end. We're going to organize to the very end, because we know what this means for our students, what this means for our city. And we know that our teachers have been working hard since COVID, through COVID, and coming out of COVID. Right now, it's springtime, and our teachers have been working since August to get our students where they need to be. And at this point in time in March, teachers are getting their kids ready to show what they know. And so we're going to keep working hard to get great outcomes for our students, but we're going to keep rallying for what we know is right for the city and for our kids.
One of the other things that you're, I'm sure, aware that has happened is that there are thousands of federal government workers who have lost their jobs in the District of Columbia, residents of the District of Columbia. Just for the sake of argument, if the House passes this Senate legislation and there are no cuts, and the district can continue operating under its 2025 budget, like in all jurisdictions in the DMV, there are some of these fired federal government workers who will be looking for jobs and would consider teaching. What are your thoughts on the possibility that there could be a flood of professionals who would be coming to DC public schools to look for teaching jobs?
Well, first, I want to say, not only are we rallying for our families and our students, the Washington Teachers Union has also been rallying for our and coming out and organizing for our brothers and sisters who work in the federal government, because we know the work, just like our work is vital, their work is vital too. And we think what's happening to them is wrong. And so we're going to continue to rally for them. But I would say that teaching is a profession. And but we need great people. Like I said, I've been saying throughout our interview that we get the best people, but we don't always keep them. And our goal at the Washington Teachers Union has always been to make sure that people are paid a wage that they can live in this wonderful city. But we also know that it's working conditions. And I always add that we want to make sure that teachers are evaluated fairly too. And we don't believe that they're evaluated fairly under the system that we have with DCPS. But we're always looking for great people. And I'm so happy that the Washington Teachers Union has always been there to support our new teachers. Who want to dedicate, because I always say people never leave the teaching profession because of the kids. You never hear them say that. They love the kids. They want to do the best for them, see great outcomes for them and their families. It's the constant improvement of working conditions and making people understand that this is an important profession. We're teaching the treasure of our community, our children. So that's important work, but we welcome them. We're hopeful that that the folks who work in the federal government will be able to keep the vital jobs that they have, because like I said, their jobs are just as important as ours. And what's happening to them is another injustice. But that we will keep organizing to come out for our federal government brothers and sisters. And
siblings. Would you consider outreach to some of those federal government workers who have lost their jobs and say, hey, there are teaching positions? Obviously, that would also be under the purview of the chancellor of the DC public school system. But in your role, is that something that you would consider? And let me explain why I'm specifically asking this,
Mhm.
because as you may or may not have heard, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the Fairfax County Public School
Mhm.
System, uh, they released a statement saying we don't have any jobs for you, that they are literally at 99% capacity
Right.
for teachers. And so they don't have a place even for highly desirable, well-skilled federal government professionals who have lost their jobs and would consider teaching. They don't have a place to put them.
Well, I would say we every year welcome between 300, 400, depending on what's going on, maybe even 500 teachers a year. I would say it is wonderful work. It is hard and challenging work, but we would welcome anyone who would think that this is a profession that they want to go into. I don't have the numbers or the data right now to say how many people DCPS would need to hire.
Mhm.
I know we're getting ready to go into that season, and we're always, as a union, very supportive of the process. And definitely, once those new individuals come into the system, our union is right there to support them in their success.
Have you had any conversations over the past several weeks with the mayor or chancellor as this budget and funding situation has unfolded?
I haven't had any direct conversations with the mayor. I've spoken to city council members. I've had other educational conversations with the chancellor, but not directly about the $1 billion. And because again, this is something that just happened last week, and we
Mhm.
put all our energies into mobilizing and organizing. And I will say, I attend a lot of rallies, but I don't think I've ever done 3 rallies in one day. And that's what happened on Thursday. I did 3, starting at 8 o'clock and not finishing until 7 o'clock. So it was a time for us to get out there and reach out to the communities and everyone that supported us, and the support that they give us. And we were just out there trying to say, you can't do this to our city. You can't do this to our children.
Hmm. I
So
do have,
mhm.
no, I'm sorry, please
No,
continue.
I was going to say I meet monthly with the chancellor. That is going to happen next Monday, not this Monday, but next Monday. And I'm sure that will be the number one topic of conversation next week.
This is kind of an off topic thing,
Mhm.
but the mayor made a comment today, a message that she has been trying to deliver to GOP members of the House,
Mhm.
where she was talking about public safety, not so much education, and made the comment kind of offhandedly, reminding them that there has been a significant drop. She said 35% a drop in overall crime in the district. I'm sure you remember a couple of years ago, there was this survey of teachers about how they were feeling in the district. I think it was 2022 or around that, and there was some really difficult information
Mhm.
about safety and crime and things like that. Have you had a chance to revisit some of those issues with teachers, if not in a survey? But do you believe that the drop in crime in the city overall has translated into how teachers are feeling in schools? Are they feeling safer? Do they see the drop in crime outside their walls mirroring the feelings inside schools?
Well, I know the survey that you're referring to because it's a survey that the Washington Teachers Union
Right.
did. And the survey didn't focus on safety outside the school, meaning going into the neighborhoods. We focus on how safe did teachers feel in their
Exactly.
schools. And
Yes.
that's what we focused on. And we continue to focus on it. During our last contract, one of the things that we wanted in the contract was a memorandum of agreement on safety. We weren't able to achieve that, but we are, it's something that we still focus on for our teachers, making sure that both teachers and students are safe in the classroom and in the school. And one of the things that we found in the survey was that teachers weren't so much concerned. They were concerned about their own safety, but they were more concerned about the safety of their kids, of their students. And so that's something that we can continue to contend with, especially when we find that we're concerned about how safe our kids feel. And I definitely, as the president of the union, want to make sure that our teachers are safe in the school community while they're teaching, meaning making sure they don't have to worry about aggression from students, parents, or any other, things within the class, within the school community. And that's something that we still focus on. And that survey gave us a lot of information that said not feeling safe in the school made them think whether they wanted to stay in the teaching profession. But it is clear that if we do not get the $1 billion necessary, that essential services will have to be cut back. And those essential services include firefighters, include police officers. It also includes the folks who keep the city clean, along with teachers. So it's a concern. And on that point, I do agree with the mayor that, we want to make sure to continue to work for a safe city, and not having those dollars, it puts that on the line. And the most people who suffer from that are people in our underserved communities.
Do you feel that things are better since the survey came out? I guess that's kind of the foundational question. There's not been another survey, and I know you like to deal in the data, but in just talking since that survey came out, how do you believe teachers are feeling?
I would feel much better if we had been successful in getting a memorandum of agreement on safety, because it would have put a lot of protocols and procedures in place to assure that all staff, not just teachers, but all staff and children are safe in the school community. So it's something I would love to put out another survey, but we did the survey because and this was, again, after coming back after COVID,
right? And
teachers actually articulating that things had changed. Students, you would normally be able to, give verbal warnings or tell kids, oh no, this isn't a good idea, or even talking to parents. But there was an added angst, or something had changed socially and emotionally, where a lot of our teachers articulated that they had to worry about their safety. So we're still suffering, I believe, from the effects of COVID. We saw glimmers of things changing, but I really feel like if we had gotten the memorandum of agreement on safety, we would be able to put protocols and procedures in place and actually keep data on things that are changing. It wouldn't just fall on the Washington Teachers Union to keep the data, but it would fall on all of us to be responsible for safety.
I'm sorry, please. I
was going to say we did get an MOA on diversity, which I think was important in the last contract. We also got one on climate, but I think I hope that we will be successful in getting one on safety.
Which brings me, and I'm glad you brought that up about diversity, because with the DC public school system being one of the most diverse school systems in the country, and again, this is a political question, when we've seen the Trump administration scrubbing references to Black and brown members of the of soldiers and airmen and sailors and the like, information about them being scrubbed from websites at Arlington National Cemetery, information about women. Everything is online until it's not. how do you tell teachers to teach about diversity, equity, and inclusion when there seems to be this move from the White House to remove that?
Right. Well, it is a concern of our of teachers in the district because, I mean, this is a historic city, and it is not. It is a diverse city, and the history of the city is diverse. Everywhere from Benjamin Banneker to Frederick Douglass to Duke Ellington. Those are all people who walked these streets of DC. I mean, even up to our modern times, where we're talking about Marvin Gaye and Dave Chappelle and Denise Graves, the opera singer. We're here with the historic high school Dunbar, the Mecca, Howard University. History is alive here. And how do you not teach that to our students, who are mainly brown and Black people? It is a concern that our teachers have, particularly because we've always been proud of that. We've always, that makes us stand out. And so for someone to feel like they have to slap our hands, or teachers actually articulating to me that we have to worry about what we say to our kids about their history and the history of this city, I can't imagine it. And we've never had to deal with the notion of banned books. I mean, we pretty much, we teach the history, literature, and culture of this wonderful city and this wonderful country. And so I know as a union, we will band together to do what we know is important for our kids. Because if you can't be something that you don't see, you can't be something if you don't know about your past.
Have you had a chance over the past 2 months now to speak with Randi Weingarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers? And if so, what kind of conversations and concerns has she expressed in this current climate, particularly as it relates to the dismantling of the Department of Education?
Well, I just saw Randi at a rally on Thursday in front of the Department of Education. And the wonderful thing about that rally was it was put together by young people. And so Randi Weingarten spoke at that rally. And so we're in conversation all the time. She's particularly, last week, she was concerned about the $1 billion, possibly that the district was going to lose. She is definitely concerned about the U.S. Department of Education. And everyone, if you don't know, our local is the Washington Teachers Union, but the umbrella of our organization is the American Federation of Teachers. So she is deeply concerned, and we definitely get the support of President Weingarten. Our local gets the support, and we get our guidelines. As a matter of fact, we just found out probably about a couple of weeks ago that we received a $10,000 grant. If people don't know, we're DC is going to host the World Pride Festival and Parade. And one of the things that we focus on at the WTU is literacy. Our members and our organization focuses on literacy. So we've received a $10,000 grant to buy books to ensure that when we attend festivals like the World Pride, we have an event conference called Shared Vision, where we're going to invite early childhood students to come in, and we're going to invite an illustrator to come in. At all of these events, we give a free book of choice to every child. And receiving this $10,000 grant from the American Federation of Teachers will help us spread literacy even more.
Outside of the current crisis, I'll give you a break from the crisis conversation in these final minutes or so. And again, for the sake of this conversation, assuming that there are no cuts, the district doesn't have to cut $1 billion, and the union and DC public schools can go on about the business of educating children and the like. What are your next steps? What do you want to see happen as we move through 2025 and 2026? What would be your druthers for next success steps?
Yeah. Well, like you said, there's a lot to be upset about of what's going on in the world and the country right now. But I believe in faith and good works. And those two, when you put those together, you can't help but be successful. What I'm hopeful for as the president of the Washington Teachers Union is that we get and keep great teachers. And I'm so happy that working with the mayor, the city council, state board, the chancellor, that we have a new contract. What we really want to make sure is that all of us that came to the table to get that contract, that we follow that contract to the T, to make sure, and I believe that ensures that we get and keep great teachers. Again, I'm going to keep saying I want a fair evaluation system for teachers. I also want us to continue to do our work with literacy. And I see that literacy became the key to my success. And I see that as the key to success for the students of the District of Columbia. So we want to keep doing that. So I would say supporting families, supporting our teachers. We're also really big on supporting community schools. And we know that, especially in this time, that schools need to have wraparound services so that students and families don't get a handout, they get a hand up. So those are some of the things that if you took away all that other stuff, if we could just focus on those things, I would say that would be job well done. And again, it seems like things are dark, but I always go back to what our ancestors had to put up with. And then what they had to put up with is in no way as bad as what we have to put up with. So we need to get out there, have faith, and do the work.
I've got like 30 seconds, but this is a really important question. From your perspective, what is the biggest impediment to literacy?
I'd like to see smaller classroom sizes for those kids who are in underserved communities. If I had my druthers, we would have 2 teachers in each classroom. What we want to focus on is great training for our teachers. Every teacher is a literacy teacher, whether you're in kindergarten or in 12th grade. If we could get great training for them on the science of reading, and then the resources. We got to give teachers the resources, and we got to give schools the resources. Community schools, perfect. You can't. One of the things that we focus on with community schools is making sure we have the attendance. Community schools work really hard on making sure that kids are in seat and learning, because if you have great attendance, you're definitely going to have great outcomes. So those are the things, I could go on and on because that's my jam, but those are some things that I hope I see in the future.
Yeah, literacy should be everybody's jam.
Yes,
but that's a whole different conversation, which I'm sure I'd like to have with you.
Well, please invite me to have that conversation.
Absolutely. Jacqueline Pogue Lyons, president of the Washington Teachers Union, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
That is the Daily Drum for this Monday, March 17th.